You try to think through every outcome because it feels responsible. It feels like you are staying ahead of problems. It feels like you are protecting yourself. But here's the part most people never notice. A lot of the thinking you do in these loops is not preparation. For many people, it is avoidance dressed as responsibility. There is a moment you know well. You tell yourself you just need one more minute to think. One more plan. One more angle. One more imagined version of what could go wrong. It feels careful. It feels mature. It feels like you are doing the right thing. But underneath that feeling is something smaller and more hidden. A part of you that is scared to move. A part of you that chooses thinking because thinking feels safer than trying. Thinking lets you stay where you are without admitting you are staying. You tell a friend you will think about it instead of giving an answer. You open a message, write what you want to say, then close the app without sending it. You keep looking for more information instead of picking one path and starting. That is the real trap of overthinking. It lets you feel responsible while keeping you in the same place. There is a reason you learned this pattern. If mistakes often led to tension around you, if you were surrounded by people who reacted before listening, if you lived in situations where one wrong move made everything unstable, your mind learned to look ahead, to predict, to prepare, to scan for danger before it arrived. Now, thinking gives you the illusion of control. It feels like protection. It feels like a shield you built before anything can hurt you. But here is the hard truth. You are not preparing. You are bracing. You are trying to prevent pain by staying inside your head. You are trying to avoid uncertainty by imagining it from every angle. For many people, this feels responsible, but it is often avoidance in disguise. And the cost is heavy. You already know this. You think so much that you drain your energy before the day even begins. You replay conversations until none of them feel real. You imagine outcomes until they push out the present moment right in front of you. You delay decisions until people stop waiting for your answer. You start to see yourself as someone who never follows through, even when you care. Overthinking promises safety, but it gives you exhaustion. It gives you distance from your own life. It gives you a sense of responsibility without any movement. You convince yourself that if you think long enough, you will find certainty. But certainty never comes. All that arrives is more fear. The more you think, the more taking action starts to feel risky. And the less you trust yourself to begin. Your mind stalls because action feels like exposure. It feels like stepping forward without knowing what waits. It feels like letting life unfold without a guarantee. And somewhere along the way, you learned that uncertainty meant risk. You learned that doing nothing felt safer than doing something. You learned that thinking was a place to hide. This is not your fault. Your mind adapted to what you lived through. It learned to protect you in the only way it could at the time. But now the same habit that kept you safe is keeping you small. It limits what you try. It limits how you grow. It limits your confidence, because confidence does not come from perfect planning. It comes from living through imperfect moments. Here is the part that begins to loosen the pattern. You do not need to stop thinking. You need to understand why you think in the way you do. When you see the real reason, the pattern loses its power. You are not thinking because you are careful. You are thinking because uncertainty makes you uncomfortable. You are not replaying every outcome because you are wise. You are replaying them because you fear being caught unprepared. You are not planning because you trust yourself. You are planning because you do not fully believe you can handle what happens. Once you see this clearly, something inside you loosens. The overthinking no longer feels like a duty. It feels like an old habit trying to solve a life you no longer live. This is where life starts to feel different. When you stop treating thinking as responsibility, you begin to notice the moments you avoided. A conversation you could have had, a decision you delayed, a step you almost took. You realize the thing you feared was not the action itself. It was the feeling that came with it. The vulnerability, the unknown, the possibility of someone watching you take a real step instead of staying in your head. That is what your mind tried to protect you from all these years. But action is not danger. It is growth. It is participation in your own life. It is the part of you that wants to live instead of prepare. Here is the real truth. The responsible thing is not thinking forever. It is trusting yourself enough to move without knowing every answer. Your life does not need endless rehearsals in your head. It needs a few honest steps in the world you are already in. You are allowed to make choices that are not perfect and still be a person who cares. Overthinking will always offer you a safer world inside your mind. But that is not the world where anything changes, or grows, or heals. The real safety comes from remembering something simple. You are capable of handling what happens. You do not need to solve everything in advance. You do not need every answer before you begin. You need only one thing: a direction you trust enough to take a real step toward it. That is where life feels less like a plan in your head and more like something you are already in.